In part 3 of my painting firearm guide, what we're looking at right now, this is my portable paint booth. If you're not familiar with this, take a look at my one of my previous videos where I did an unboxing of this and a setup. What this basically is a small little portable paint booth with a fan, an exhaust tube, and some filtering capability that allows you to paint smaller items in enclosed areas without getting paint residue everywhere, because paint particles float in the air and they land on stuff and get in your hair and they land on everything, as well as the paint fumes. So with the fan going, all of the paint overspray as well as the fumes are sucked in through the filter and exited out through an exhaust tube, which I have underneath the door of my workshop. And what I've done here is I've actually placed some paper down on the bottom surface, and I've got, you can't see it, but I've got some other paper down here so I don't get overspray all over this. As you can see, the tops and the sides here are kind of translucent, and I have a light on the top shining down to illuminate my painting surface. So I don't really want to get paint all over everything, so I put down a little bit of protective material. Also, this is the carousel, or the Lazy Susan. It's a rotating plate that I covered. I put some paper over the top of it and wrapped it with tape. Again, I didn't want to get tons of paint all over this. And what this allows you to do is let's say I was painting a surface like this. I can basically rotate the item while I paint it. Now that's great if your surface is flat or an angled or whatever. But if it's a surface like this little item and you've got to get the front, the back, the sides, everything painted, you can see what I've done here is I've taken one of my disposable paint brushes and I wrapped some foam around the end of it and inserted it inside. So let's assume I'm painting this item, and I'm not interested in painting the inside per se. I'm just interested in the outside surfaces, like so. With my paintbrush inserted in there, I can now apply paint to all sorts of different surfaces while I'm holding this inside of my little paint area. I'm using my finger to indicate that I'm spray painting. So I can rotate this and I can move it around, and I can hold it for inspection. I can take it out of the paint booth real easy. I can take it out, put it up to my eye if I need to look at it real closely. So your paintbrush or a stick, a popsicle stick, you're going to find that little things like that, if you get creative, they're going to come in real handy. So imagine this was a pistol grip that I was painting. Maybe I would insert this through the bottom of the pistol grip. That way I could hold the pistol grip and get the bottom area of it, and then the top area, and so on. Now, if you're going to go this route, you have to understand that when you put down one coat of paint, there's a certain period of time before the paint flashes and you put another coat down. So roughly 5 to 10 minutes, given what type of paint it is. You're going to be laying down paint in light coats, and after 4, 5, 6, 7 coats, however many you decide, you're going to be finished with your painting, and you've got to let it cure. So you're not going to take a freshly painted item and just set it down like this, because what's going to happen, those freshly painted surfaces are going to get marred or in some way scraped off, damaged, whatever. So you're going to have to figure out a suitable way to let this cure. And I'll grab something here that I use. I use these little clamps. You can buy these at Home Depot or Lowe's. You get big ones and small ones and so on. So what I what I might do is I might put this on a surface. Let's see if there's a good way for me to demonstrate this. And of course we can't see it, but I'll kind of rotate. Kind of see what I did right there. I clamped the entire thing to the side of my booth, so it's not none of my painted surfaces are touching anything. So you can go that route. You can use these little clamps to clamp this onto something. It could be the edge of a table, the edge of your paint booth, you know, whatever you have handy where you can firmly secure this so it doesn't touch anything. Now, when I paint something like this, I will let it cure for, I won't touch it for 24 hours basically. Most paints are, you can handle them well before that, but if the next step of the process is clear coating, there's a certain amount of time that you want to wait before you can clear coat it. So, you know, I'll do this stuff one day and then I'll let it dry overnight and I'll come back the next day. And, you know, when I come back the next day, I can take it off and I can pull my foam out. And, you know, if I'm gonna, obviously if I'm gonna clear coat it, I'm gonna keep it on my little stick right there, and then I'm going to repeat the process. So I'm going to clear coat it while it's on the stick and so on. Okay, so I want to talk about what I did was off camera. I painted a couple of items, and I painted two plastic items, and I used Krylon Fusion in white. And one item I did nothing to. I took it, I took my compressed can of air, I blew off any dust, and I painted it. The other item I cleaned of any dust. I used the wax and grease remover. I then used adhesion promoter, and then I painted it. So, see if we can capture these two items. Actually, now this may be a little hard for the camera to catch here. It depends on how it's focusing, but we have two little pieces of plastic here. Can you guess which one of these two pieces I just picked up and threw paint on, and which piece I used the wax and grease remover and the adhesion promoter on? Yeah, it's this one. I prepped this one. This one was not prepped. It's kind of a dead giveaway with these splotches right here. And what causes these splotches? Contaminants. In the industry, we refer to those, well, people in the industry, I'm not in the painting industry, they refer to those as fish eyes. And these types of blemishes are caused by some sort of contaminant on the surface. Could be silicone from like an Armor All, could be oils from your fingers, could be regular oil, gun oil, grease, you name it. Just about anything can cause that. This is what you're trying to avoid by all of the prep work, because once you start painting this and one of these appear, you're going to have a lot of paint's never going to stick to that surface, regardless of how many coats you put on here. It's just gonna, if you squirt paint on it, you're gonna see the paint just move away from that, like it's a hole. The paint's just gonna move away from it. Paint will not stick to these types of contaminants. So it's imperative that your prep work is done properly. Painting is the easy part. It's the quickest part. It's the prep work that takes the most amount of effort. Now with this piece, I have to start all over with this. I would have to completely remove all of the paint and repeat the process of the wax and grease remover and adhesion promoter, and then painting it again. So this really screws up your project if something like this happens, because once you've got paint on it like this, you either need to take an enamel reducer or goof off to it and remove the paint, or you need to sand it off. So there's a lot more time involved to fix something like this. If you can, avoid these types of problems altogether by doing the proper prep work. And you can see this piece turned out flawlessly. Or you may or may not be able to see it depending upon the lighting, but this piece is absolutely flawless. There's no specks of anything in this. There's no fish eyes. You know, the paint, I put like 4 coats of paint on this. Of course, this is just a test item. And it, you know, everything's perfect. This piece would be ready to clear coat, and I'm done with it. Now, since these pieces are actually flat, I painted them on this little carousel right here, because I don't need to paint the bottom of these for the most part. So I basically just put these on and rotated them on the carousel while I did the paint. So the going back to the paint booth here, if you look at my previous video, these little paint booths are very handy to have if you're painting indoors or quasi indoors. Go and check out my other video on this. You can get these little paint booths off of eBay for like $73, $74, $75 shipped. It's a very good investment for painting small items. I mean, the opening across the front here is not very large, so you can't. This doesn't really work for large objects, although you can buy 2 of these and combine them together for a larger work surface and more filtration. Since I do painting inside of a workshop because it's temperature controlled, especially in the winter, it's works out real well for me. Speaking of temperature, I want to make sure that I address that. If it's anything below about 60 degrees or so, you really don't want to be painting in cold weather. Paint requires, you know, to paint stuff properly, your humidity and your temperature needs to be within certain parameters, and normally that will be on their paint can. I found that paint works best for me if the temperature is at least 60 degrees, 60 to 75 degrees or so, and you don't want the humidity too high. Where I live in the Northwest, you know, 8 months out of the year it's cold and rainy, so I can't really be painting outside. So I'm kind of stuck painting in my workshop. So this little paint booth comes in real handy to keep overspray from floating around and landing on other things, and filtering the fumes. And I use this in conjunction with my full face respirator, and of course I'm wearing gloves and so on. So even though I have this to deal with the paint particles and the fumes, I'm still wearing the respirator anytime I've got you know, any type of painting going on, because even when I'm done painting, the particles that are floating around may have been taken care of by this, and a lot of the paint fumes have been taken care of. But I still have a wet surface that may be giving off some fumes, so I'll keep my respirator on, and then I'll leave. That's one of the other reasons I'll come back after 24 hours, when the stuff's fully cured. My area's had a chance to air out a little bit more, and so on. So I believe that's going to wrap up part 3 of this multi-part series for painting. The next installment 4, I'm going to actually paint something. I'm not sure what I'm going to paint, probably a test item, and I'm going to try and paint that on video so you can see the techniques that I use for painting these smaller objects.